Howdy, so about a month ago I agreed to fix Luke Smith's ThinkPad. There were a few problems with shipping, but it just arrived yesterday afternoon. I'm sure a lot of you are from Luke Smith's channel, but if you don't know, Luke Smith makes GNU/Linux and linguist videos, and you should check him out if that stuff interests you. So Luke's X220 broke in a rather unique way when he was working on it. The LCD cable shorted against the motherboard, which ruined the connector, the motherboard, as well as the cable. It potentially messed up the LCD panel as well, but although the chance is rather low, I just decided to replace it with a unit I had offhand. I originally planned to fix it entirely from parts I had available, but I decided an i3 from X220i was a bit too slow, and I had an i5 2410M, or maybe it was a i5 2430M motherboard. But either way, it was only $25 on eBay and came in a nice electrostatic discharge bag. So there was also a stripped screw that needed to be drilled out before I could start the rebuild. I think Luke started to Dremel it out first, but I just decided to complete the job. In this video, I pretty much rebuilt an entire X220. It's filmed in about 4x speed, but overall it took probably about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer if you count the fact that I did cut out a lot of the times I was stuck in my house looking for a part. So rather than just narrating this video, I will also am planning on sharing a few thoughts about my X220, because rather than a uuid error that I haven't experienced before and still need to address, the repair was pretty straightforward. I emailed Luke about it and I asked if I could put coreboot on the machine, and I got the go-ahead. So that should fix the uuid error. I also did a little bit of research about the uuid error, and I have a bit of an idea about what might cause it. The exact error is 2200 machine type and serial number are invalid, and also 2201 machine uuid is invalid. I have never experienced this error before, and I've swapped out X220 motherboard quite recently in my own system. And I also made a godforsaken X220i, which didn't have the problem of this, and you know, I might have just gotten lucky, and maybe I never ran the swap motherboard with the stock BIOS, but I'm pretty sure I tested it with the stock BIOS before I put coreboot on it and didn't see this uuid error. But what makes me, I guess, theorize a little bit is, since the uuid error in the BIOS is just a series of zeros, maybe this motherboard is a new old stock or something similar. From a bit of research, it seems like the licensed OEM repairers have the software to write uuid numbers. I don't know when the uuid numbers are assigned, so maybe it's either, maybe they don't assign them as a factory for when you buy a replacement part, and the other motherboards I got were from Pick and Pulse. That could be wrong. That's just my guess. I'm not really familiar with this stuff. So pretty much what it seems is I need a copy of the ThinkPad maintenance diskette. I don't think the software is normally distributed, but it seems relatively easily findable with like a Google search. So anyways, I think since Luke was planning on putting coreboot on the system anyways, and I have a Raspberry Pi set up for coreboot, and I have a compiled coreboot ROM, I might as well just add coreboot. I might even make a coreboot video. Rather than that though, I guess Luke's ThinkPad is fixed with new thermal paste and pads and some parts that were not sent to me to save weight on shipping, but I'm sure Luke can sort that out when I send it back in a few days. I mean, the ThinkPad doesn't have a few of the plastic covers like for the hard drive, or the hard drive, or the hard drive caddy, or the RAM, or the little cover thing for the RAM, but I think that's actually it. Okay, for a bit of an abrupt segue, now to my thoughts about the X220. So I guess I should start by comparing the X220 to other ThinkPads. So the X220 is a member of the X series, which is the ultra-mobile ThinkPad line. This means soldered-in CPU, small form factors, and good battery life. Out of the X series, it seems like most models support coreboot. Pretty much all the ones from the Core Duo up to the I series until Ivy Bridge is supported. The X60 and the X200 can run LibreBoot, but that just means there are no non-free blobs, which for me doesn't necessarily outweigh the performance difference. The other core bootable X series will have some blobs, but the thing is with that, you'll actually have to take the vendor's BIOS and extract the binary blobs from it and compile. So you'll have to like use the original vendor's BIOS image to make the coreboot ROM, and compiling it and doing all that can be a little bit of a pain. So in terms of ease of use, the pre-compiled LibreBoot images are a lot easier. So another thing is coreboot can also run on a lot of different systems from the Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge era, and aren't ThinkPads. I think even a MacBook is supported, as well as a lot of Chromebooks. I mean, it's nowhere close to everything that came out, but there's a lot of different options. So anyways, though, back to the X220. The X220 is probably the most similar to the X230, at least in CPU performance, but I guess actually it's probably the most similar to the X230. Or maybe the X201, there was a redesign in between that. I don't know if you can actually swap a lot of the components between the X230 and the X220. So the X230 though has the much better Intel Graphics 4000 series. It is also more expensive generally, and has a shitty keyboard. Oh, sorry. In my opinion, a keyboard, at least in comparison. Sorry if you own an X230 with the stock keyboard. They are swappable though. My only experience though, I guess, with the original X230 keyboard, I never owned an X230 keyboard. I did own an E430 at one point, and I assume they have a similar chiclet keyboard, and I wasn't a fan of that. So anyways though, the X220 and the X230 are limited to a kind of cursed screen resolution of 1366 by 768. But they can have IPS displays, and like most of the other models, it really does make a noticeable difference when compared to a TN panel. There are mod kits for 1920 by 1080 displays for the X220, but I'm still trying to get a hold of one. I've been on this email list for at least a couple months, maybe a semester, and I'm beginning to think they're kind of unobtainium. So really, my main complaint of the X220 is pretty much the screen resolution. The reason I have for this is it does not work for bloated IDEs. For example, Eclipse or Visual Studio will just kind of kill it. I have to use that software for some of my university classes, and I prefer to use my laptop even if I have to use a VM. Bloated IDEs like this kind of make the screen resolution unusable. It's partly due to how slanted it is and how much the IDEs will actually put stuff on the side. Like you'll see your files, and you'll have two windows over here, you'll have two windows over here, and you'll have like a debugger on the bottom. But and it'll be stuck with maybe the place where your code in the middle of the screen. I know there. So, anyways, though, I guess to get off that tangent, so pretty much what this would be fine, except that most of the other X series ThinkPads, rather than the X220, X230, and the X131, which is a netbook, so I'm not quite sure it counts. It's pretty small. They can support better resolutions. You get like 1440 by 900 panels for the X200 and the X201, and the X60 has 1400 by 1050 panels, but I really can't justify spending like $100 for a panel for my X60. Rather than the screen resolution issue, though, the X220 is rather nice. It has a pretty good battery life and is new enough that OEM cells are still common. The lack of good OEM cells is a problem with the X60 and a lot of other older ThinkPads. I think I went through 3 different battery packs, and the only one working was this Chinese battery pack. I think the first one was a new old stock situation where it just sat on a shelf for 10 years. I think the other one was just a used battery pack that someone sold me and kind of lied about it, but it didn't work or hold a charge or anything. And the Chinese cell worked fine, but you know, what can you get for like $12 battery packs? So in terms of capacity, they're like 50% of what they should be, but if it works and it's $12, I guess it's an okay deal. But I'd rather have like OEM cells. Another thing about the X220 though is it actually has decent performance. It is very far ahead compared to the Core 2 Duos, and it is still a fair bit ahead of Westmere. Everything else after Sandy Bridge has been kind of minute improvements in performance, so X220 will actually compete with a fair bit of modernish laptops while remaining relatively cheaper. Also, as you can tell, it's very easy to repair and very cheap to maintain. I've also dropped my ThinkPad in the past, and I've never had any issues with screens cracking or similar results. And it is overall probably my most used ThinkPad, so I guess I would recommend an X220, but I guess that's the end of my video. Yeah, so have a good one, peace, and hopefully this turned out well. Oh yeah, I forgot. Here is the Thinkpad Booting Up. As you can see, it has those 2 error messages, but kind of just continues into a normal boot sequence. It's currently running off my Debian installation, so I guess that's about it though. Have a good one, and yeah.